Hello aspirants, so now we are making a stop at Europe. We'll be covering it quite shortly and it will be a quick lecture. So first, Europe and Asia together, they are called Eurasia. It's an entire continent. But because Europe has a different cultural landscape and a different kind of a social landscape as well, that's why it is considered a separate continent. But in all, you will see a huge landmass. So if aliens were to look at us from the top, they will just see a huge landmass. They will definitely figure out Africa is different, Australia is different, North and South America are also different to some extent. But this entire Eurasia, they'll be seeing as one full landmass. So let's just focus on Europe for now. So it is separated from Asia by the Ural Mountains over here. These are the Ural Mountains. Then they have the Caucasus Mountains over here. And around the Black Sea and Sea of Marmara, Istanbul city. So Istanbul city is the only city in the world which is present in both continents, in Asia and Europe. Remember, Istanbul is present in both continents. And features which separate Europe from Asia is the Urals, Caucasus, and sea straits, Marmara, Black Sea. Okay, so now let us focus on the highlands as we have done before. We'll be first be covering the highlands and the mountains of Europe and then we'll be moving on to others. The tectonic activity in Europe is not very active. That's why we are not covering tectonic plates for Europe. However, around the Mediterranean Sea, they are very active. So that's why that area also has a lot of volcanoes. Now, Scandinavian Highlands is this region. It is one of the oldest pieces of highlands in the world. And remember Appalachian Mountains, which we had covered in North America. So Appalachian Mountains and Scandinavian Mountains, highlands, are almost on the same timeline. They were formed almost on the same timeline. And if you go back to the maps 400, 500 million years back, that is even before dinosaurs. So at that point of time, these mountains were formed. Now, I want you to notice because we focused a lot in Greenland, we focused a lot on fjords, skerries. So those are filled over here. And so is Iceland. The entire coastline of Iceland, which is touching Greenland over here. So it is full of fjords and skerries. I hope you remember how fjords are formed. Okay, the glacial, massive glacial erosions. It erodes a lot of crust, a lot of things. In fact, it goes below the sea level. Once it goes below the sea level and glacier retreats, seawater gets in, floods those regions, and what we're left with are fjords. Now we are covering at the Alps. So Alps are fold mountains. They are pretty young as well, so we can call them young fold mountains. Alps are extended in France. Remember which countries Alps is in. It is in France, it's in Switzerland, Italy, Austria and Slovenia. So Italy, just the northern portion is covered with Alps. Austria, almost the entire country, more than half. Switzerland, of course, completely covered. So if UPSC asks you the countries which cover Alps, those are France, Switzerland, Italy, Australia and Slovenia. Pretty much understood. You know the boundary of Alps is almost in the center of Europe, a bit south. So all of those countries which are in that region are a part of Alps. Now, Alpine Himalayan system. You remember the Ring of Fire? What is the Ring of Fire? Ring of Fire is an entire area around the Pacific plate that is covering from Southeast Asia, goes all around the Pacific Ocean and gets down at Chile. That is the Ring of Fire. A lot of volcanoes are there, a lot of tectonic activity takes place there. Around the same angle is the Alpine Himalayan system. Not many people know about this, and UPSC will love it because these regions surrounding the Alpine Himalayan system are getting politically more sensitive. So we have to cover it in detail. So Alpine Himalayan system is African plate pushing up across the Mediterranean, the different plates in Mediterranean and the Eurasian plate. The Arabian plate is also pushing up, and so is the Indo-Australian plate pushing up. The Eurasian plate over here is stable, does not move. This is resisting the influx of African, Arabian and Indian plates, resulting in the formation of all of these highlands. Starting from Tibetan Plateau, Karakoram Ranges, Himalayas, then goes into the Zagros and Elbrus mountains of Iran, moves over to Anatolia over here, then goes into, don't have to write anything because we'll be covering all of this in West Asia as it is. So then finally it forms the Caucasian mountains are also present somewhere here, and also the Alps. So remember, if they are young fold mountains and if the tectonic activity is pretty active, then they are most probably a part of the Alpine Himalayan system. UPSC can always ask which of the following are a part of the Alpine Himalayan system. Which of the following ranges? So all of these ranges are a part of the Alpine Himalayan system. Remember this. Okay. Now, these are the other Alpine Himalayan systems which are present in Europe. First, Pyrenees, very important. Pyrenees are important. Why? Because they form the boundary between Spain and France over here. So remember those plateaus or those areas which form a boundary. Now, Pyrenees is very important because of Barcelona. We will be covering Barcelona later, and I'll tell you why it's important, not just the football club, why it's politically important. Then Apennines, you see those that are covered ending with ines, they are part of the Alpine Himalayan system as well, and somewhat form a part of the border areas. So Pyrenees between Spain and France. Apennines are over here in Italy, somewhere, spine of Italy, curved, active, subducted. So it's not possible. Yeah, here it is. Central Apennines, northern and southern. You just have to remember Apennines, not so much. And they are lying perfectly parallel to the Mediterranean Sea. Then there are the Dinaric Alps. Over here, there are the Dinaric Alps. And Balkan Mountains, Carpathians and Caucasus. You need to remember Pyrenees, Apennines. That's it. You don't have to remember these, but just in case, know these. So, Caucasus Mountains. There are two Caucasus Mountains actually. One is the greater, one is the lesser. When UPSC says Caucasus, they are usually mentioning about the greater one. And they have the highest peak of Europe is present in Caucasus, not in Alps. Usually people refer to it as Mont Blanc. The pen company is also named after Mont Blanc. Mont Blanc is the highest peak of Alps, but Mount Elbrus is present in Caucasus Mountains. That is the highest peak of entire Europe. So that is the Caucasus mountain ranges. Now we move ahead, and now we're covering a plateau, the Black Forest Plateau. So this Black Forest Plateau is important only for the Danube River, and that the river Rhine flows close to it. River Rhine curves at a part, and that's why it flows along its western margin. You can see Danube River flowing from here and going over into the Czech Republic. So that's all you have to remember. Black Forest. Also remember, it is not a part of the Alpine Himalayan system, because one of the conditions to be a part of the Alpine Himalayan system is that it has to be a young fold mountain. This is not. This is a block mountain. Danube, one of the very important rivers of Europe. Why? Because it goes through these many countries. It starts from Germany, goes into Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova. It touches Moldova, Ukraine, and finally it goes into the Black Sea. This is the Black Sea here. It goes into the Black Sea. Now, how do you remember this? German aunt saw hungry cats, served rice, butter, milk up front. German aunt Austria saw Slovakia, Hungary, cat Croatia. So what will she do? She served Serbia, rice Romania, butter Bulgaria, milk Moldova, up front Ukraine. And remember this line, it is the longest that flows into an ocean. That means there is some other river also which we have to take care of. Rhine. The Rhine is not the river, it's a different river. It is the economic spine of Europe. So if there is a question, the economic spine of Europe, it is the Rhine. Why so? Because a lot of coal factories and mining used to happen in the Ruhr region. And because of the Ruhr region, there was a lot of disputes between Germany and France. Everybody wanted to control that. A lot of industrial hubs are present, starting wherever the Rhine is starting, somewhere in Switzerland, and goes up till the North Sea. Also, it has a very important port called the Rotterdam port of Netherlands. This is an extremely important port for entire Europe. During the Second World War, one of the prime objectives of Hitler was to capture the Rotterdam port. Similarly, after the Normandy landings, when the Allies were pushing back, their primary objective was to capture the Rotterdam port because it is the industrial heart of Europe. So we have the Volga. First I'll be covering Volga, then I'll be going to the Dnieper. Why? Because you just learned that the Danube is a river which is the longest river in Europe to flow into an open ocean. One that does not flow is Volga. It flows into an endorheic basin, that is a basin that is completely enclosed. It is an internal basin. So Volga has an internal drainage into the Caspian Sea. That's why Volga is actually the longest river of Europe. But when it is being asked that the longest river that flows into an open ocean, it becomes Danube. Always remember. And also remember the German aunt thing. It will be very important for you. Next, we are covering Dnieper. The only reason we are covering Dnieper and also Dniester is because Ukraine and Russia are still a political flashpoint. It is still going on, so we have to cover this. Dnieper and Dniester both flow into the Black Sea. And their source is Valdai Hills. At least Dnieper's source is the Valdai Hills up north in Russia. And it flows through Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. Starts from Russia, goes through Belarus, enters Dnieper, enters Ukraine, and flows into the Black Sea. So, it is extremely important there to remember the west-east order, and all of these main important rivers of Europe are also touching many different cities of Europe. You must remember which river forms which city. Seine, for example, forms Paris. Vistula is Warsaw. Rhone is Geneva, Switzerland. Elbe is Hamburg, another industrial hub. West to east order of these rivers are Seine, Rhine, Elbe, Oder, Vistula. Then important river of Italy is Po. Rhone flows down. Remember this, Rhone flows below into the Mediterranean Sea, while Rhine flows up into the North Sea. Seine has Paris, Rhine has the industrial hub and enters the Rotterdam port. Elbe has Hamburg, Vistula has Warsaw. Capital cities are Paris, Warsaw. Danube goes through many capital cities, almost all the capital cities of many of these countries, not Germany. It flows through Austria, it flows through Hungary. All of these capital cities are touched by Danube. Now, drainage, always remember, because Europe is, a very confusing continent in case of rivers. There is one continent, then rivers are flowing in all directions. You are not preparing for European civil services, you're preparing for Indian civil services. So over here, you just need to remember a couple of rivers that are flowing into each drainage basins. For example, North Sea drainage has Rhine, Elbe and Thames, London. Mediterranean has Rhone and Po. Baltic Sea has Vistula, capital Warsaw, Poland is in Vistula, and Black Sea is all D. Danube, Dnieper, Dniester. There's also a Don river. This also flows into the Black Sea. Finally, rivers are over. We are entering seas. This is very confusing a part, so please pay attention here. First, the Baltic Sea. Now, only this region is the Baltic Sea. However, there are many other gulfs which are connecting Baltic Sea. Like there is the Gulf of Bothnia between Sweden and Finland. Then there is the Gulf of Finland between Finland and Estonia. So Gulf of Finland is in the south of Finland, while Gulf of Bothnia is between Sweden and Finland. Both of them are connected to the Baltic Sea. Baltic Sea is in fact connected to the North Sea. Here is the North Sea. How are they connected to? Through a strait, a channel called the Kattegat and the Skagerrak. Gulf of Bothnia. So if you have to go from the North Polish regions from here, you enter the Gulf of Bothnia, you enter the Baltic Sea, then you enter Kattegat, Skagerrak, and enter the North Sea. Now, very important, Mediterranean Sea. So Mediterranean Sea is also facing the same problem. It is a lot of seas inside the Mediterranean Sea as well. We can remember it just by looking at it. Let's see. So Mediterranean Sea and Atlantic Sea are covered with the Gulf of Gibraltar. Strait of Gibraltar. Strait of Gibraltar is between Spain and Morocco. But the city of Gibraltar is an overseas territory of UK. Wherever there is money, a lot of money, UK will mostly be present. Next, we go up into the Balearic Islands. Close to the Balearic Islands is the Balearic Sea. Then we have the islands of Corsica and Sardinia. So we have the Sea of Sardinia here and a Ligurian Sea on top. Then there is a Tyrrhenian Sea, which is close to Italy. Now, Italy is surrounded by 4 different seas. Okay, Ligurian Sea, Tyrrhenian Sea, Ionian Sea, and the Adriatic Sea. You must remember these 2 at least. The Ionian Sea and the Adriatic Sea. Why? Because Adriatic Sea is not just of Italy. Adriatic Sea touches the borders of Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Albania, and Greece as well. While the Ionian Sea is an open landmark touching Sicily as well. Next, in West Asia, around West Asia, we have the Aegean Sea and the Levantine Sea. So there are so many seas. All you have to remember is Balearic Sea, Sea of Sardinia, Tyrrhenian, Ionian Sea, Adriatic Sea, and the Levantine Sea. Aegean Sea you will remember because of the Black Sea. I'll show you how. Now, the countries around the Black Sea are these: Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, Georgia, Russia, Ukraine. Okay. First, let's cover how the Black Sea is connected to the Atlantic Ocean. And that's why the rivers flowing into the Black Sea are not called the seas which are not called open ocean or the inland basin. Caspian Sea is an inland basin because it is not connected through an open sea naturally. Now, Black Sea and the Caspian Sea have been connected with a canal. However, it is not natural. It's a man-made canal. So, how is Black Sea connected to Atlantic Ocean? We'll start from the Sea of Azov. Sea of Azov. Yeah. Sea of Azov goes to the Kerch Strait. There's a city called Kerch here and enters the Black Sea. So this is a ship flowing, okay, going to the Black Sea. Then, before entering the Sea of Marmara, it visits the city of Istanbul. The only city is present in two continents, Asia and Europe. So this is the Bosphorus Strait over here. So through the Bosphorus Strait, it enters the Sea of Marmara. And from the Sea of Marmara, it goes to the Dardanelles Strait. Through the Dardanelles Strait, it enters the Aegean Sea. That's why I said Aegean Sea is important. Now from the Aegean Sea, it will go right below to Mediterranean Sea, go all the way here to Strait of Gibraltar, and finally the Atlantic Ocean. So when you are covering, I know many students cover Sea of Azov to Mediterranean Sea. You do not stop there, okay? Because the more you have a look that, okay, because whenever you're looking at Mediterranean Sea, you will be looking at Ionian, you will be looking at Tyrrhenian, you will be looking at Sea of Sardinia, you will be looking at all of these islands, Sicily, Sardinia, Balearic Islands. Mapping is all about how much of a visual memory you can use. So when you are starting, you start from the Sea of Azov and you reach the Atlantic Ocean. Do not stop at Black Sea. Look at the entire seas of Mediterranean as well. That way you remember. Now Mediterranean islands. Just these islands you need to remember. One is Sicily, where here, south of Italy. Sicily is surrounded by Tyrrhenian Sea and the Ionian Sea. Sardinia is a part of Italy, while Corsica is a part of France. Crete, part of Greece. Cyprus, so close to Asia, but in fact it is a part of Europe. The main reason for this is Cyprus is a disputed territory, not the entire country. The northern portion of Cyprus is controlled by Turkey, and the southern portion is actually what is considered the country of Cyprus. There are two important islands which I wanted to cover. One is the United Kingdom. Remember, what is the Great Britain, what is the United Kingdom, and what is the narrowest point? So, Great Britain is actually England, Scotland, Wales. Only this much. This is Great Britain. Only the parts which are forming inside the main island of England. This is Scotland over there. Over here we have Wales, and next is remaining is England. So all three regions combined forms a Great Britain. When we are talking about the United Kingdom, we are getting all of these regions along with Northern Ireland. That becomes the United Kingdom. So Strait of Dover is the narrowest channel between England and France, somewhere here. That separates England from France, and that is the Strait of Dover. Iceland is another. Now look at the number of fords and skerries that are present. Full of fords over here. All of these regions are fords, and also there has to be skerries as well. Because it's a divergent plate boundary, it has a lot of volcanoes, and Denmark Strait finally separates Iceland from Greenland. Some areas which are disputed, like I mentioned Cyprus already, Catalonia. This is where Barcelona is, somewhere over here. So Catalonia is it is a disputed region. Now they want internal separatism from Spain. Catalonia is between France, Spain, and also the small enclave of Andorra, a small city enclave like Vatican City. So if you are asked Catalonia, who is around Catalonia, it's Andorra, France, and Spain. Cyprus, I've already explained. Southern is the Southern Republic of Cyprus, while the northern is recognized only by Turkey. Finally, there's Kosovo. So they declared their independence from Serbia. Of course, it borders Serbia, but it is recognized by many countries. Many don't recognize it. The ones who are in good terms with Serbia will not recognize it. The ones who are anti-Serbia will recognize it. That's how politics goes. Finally, we are touching the Benelux countries. Now, these three are the precursors of European Union. The Benelux, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. These are very small countries present in the northern portion of mainland Europe between Germany and France. Now, their most important part is they are the precursor of European Union. That's all we need to remember. And they don't have any military strong point in Europe. That's why even Nazi Germany was able to cruise through them. But what their main focus is: development, education, health. They are one of the most advanced countries in the world, and the earliest economic unions in the world. Looking at them, European Union decided to form an entire European Union. Some political flags. Now we are entering into the area of double landlocked countries. There are just two double landlocked countries in the entire world. One is Liechtenstein. It is landlocked by Switzerland and Australia, which themselves are landlocked countries. So we have landlocked countries which do not have access to the ocean. Then there are some countries, two countries in the world, which are surrounded by landlocked countries themselves, hence earning the name double landlocked countries. So they have to pass two countries to reach the sea. One is Liechtenstein and the other is Uzbekistan. We will cover that in Central Asia. Prime Meridian passes through England, Spain, and France. Then it enters Africa. Istanbul only Syria in two continents, and Kaliningrad is a Russian enclave between Poland and Lithuania in Baltic Sea. These are the only political facts you need to remember about Europe. Next, we are going to cover Arctic and Antarctica. So thank you for your attention and meet you in the freezing conditions of Arctic and Antarctica.